let's get started and get going. So this is exciting. All right. So hi, everyone. My name is Sam, and we are so excited to have you on board with another series for navigating the changes that are coming to the industry. We're getting a ton of questions as to how to actually navigate this change. So we've brought the experts in the field, and they will talk a lot about super interesting things that are coming to the industry, the changes, and the things that we need to do to really adapt and navigate this change together. So I think, Sabine, you can take the floor and introduce everyone.
I would love to. And sorry about that. I think my camera crapped out there for a second. Hi, everybody. I want to thank everyone for joining us too. We really appreciate it. You all know, if you were here last month, this is a roomvu HIVEOLOGie joint, and this is our second in a series of workshops. My name is Sabine Steinbrecher. I'm the founder and CEO of HIVEOLOGie. We have developed a learning community that's 100% designed to support your sort of accelerated success in your business. And this is one of the ways that we want to do this. So this is one of many free workshops. We think this series is particularly critical at the moment. So we hope that you'll stick with these every month. And all you need to do that is come back and register each time, and we'll make sure you get the link. The experts we have are also pretty incredible. So today I'm going to introduce you to Karen and Ginger in a minute. And Sam, of course, is always super helpful with all of these sessions. We've got, I think the first thing I will tell you about today is we've got some pretty amazing goodies for you. So we always try to give you some related resources, bonuses, whatever you want to call them, but these are designed to help you develop and articulate your value proposition. And this time also to help you communicate it, because we believe that one of the most critical elements to make sure that you are not only hired, but you are fairly compensated, is understanding how to articulate and really truly communicate your value proposition in this market. So you will find in the description, and I believe in the comments, you're going to see a link. It's gohive.info/roomvu. And if you sign up there, you're going to get 6 monster promos. One is $25 that you get to spend as you wish, which is always fun to get free money. You get our free guide, Be the One They Call, which has examples and exercises to create your own scripts that will help you deliver sort of your value prop in a different way. So it'd be really interesting, but really it's designed to help to make sure that people think of you and refer you when anybody's talking about real estate. Our new definitive value prop course, this is a phenomenal course. It's at 70% off for you. So you're going to save $350. We're going to invite you to our at least two of our next free workshops. One of them is Ginger's coming up in June, where she's going to do a deep dive on buyer rep agreements and compensation. So today you're going to get a taste of that, but it's going to go deeper in the workshop. And we also have Mastering the Art of an Irresistible Value Proposition. That's Amy Charu. So if you guys were here last time, you know Amy. So she's going to be doing that. Both of those are free workshops. We also have Karen's course, which is really fabulous. This is I
think Sabine got cut off.
What is it?
All right, I will jump in. So something super cool is that we have a lot of audience from Canada and a lot of audience from different cities in the US. A couple of questions we got was, well, we see the same lawsuit happening in Canada right now. What is going on, and do we expect to see the same thing in the next coming year to Canada? And I think the answer is probably we will see the same changes coming, because if there's a lawsuit and people can get money, probably they would do the same thing in Canada. It's there is a similar lawsuit going on. So I think being ahead of the curve and knowing what's happening in the industry is definitely the most important thing that Canadian realtors can do. We have in our audience today, we have people from Richmond, Virginia, Ohio, Huntington Beach, California. So it's really interesting to see so many different cities, different geographical thing in here. And we have over 100 live attendees right now watching us on YouTube. So this is really cool. And so I have received a couple of questions and I will go over them. But guys, please put your questions in the chat. Our team would also put in the link for the first round of these series that we had. A lot of the audience are asking, where is the first one? Can we rewatch the first one? So yes, you can rewatch the first one. We'll put the link in there. So to watch the first episode of this, and please just put your questions in the chat. We will go over them. I will be basically asking them in here. And I think Sabine, you got cut off, so continue to.
I'm so sorry, guys. I'm not sure. It's literally the first time I've had trouble with this, so I don't know what's going on. It might be my camera. But here's what I'm going to do. In case something happens again, I'm going to introduce Ginger and Karen right now. Both Ginger and Karen have a bunch of questions and information they want to translate to you. So let me introduce you, and I'll just, if I have trouble, I'll get back on again as soon as I can. But to start with, Ginger is an active broker, and she's been negotiating buyer agency agreements for a couple of decades. That's as deep as we need to go. But what's interesting is Ginger has done this primarily in investment and commercial property sales over those years, where this has been the norm for the entire time. She knows how to do this because she's had to do it in her business. So what's really exciting about this is, you know, she can translate everything that she's done and learned in that space to help all of us understand how to do that in residential real estate. So she's going to take some of that expertise. She also is a very experienced and popular instructor for residential as well. So you're going to hear her give us some of her secrets. And then Karen, so Karen Liz Albert, Karen is a super in-demand social media strategist, coach, an educator with over 25 years specializing in real estate social media strategies. And over that time, through all of her programming, which is super cool. I love this stat, Karen. She has helped over 25,000 real estate professionals create and maintain a high quality and consistent online presence that has led to over 100 million in sales. Like, how ridiculously cool is that? So as usual, we are only bringing you the best. So we know that you're going to love Ginger and Karen. And Sam, you know, CEO and co-founder at roomvu, the authority where AI meets social media. And Sam is in charge of helping us keep us organized, and he will also be providing his marketing expertise to this conversation as we go as well. So don't forget, ask your questions, please. We're going to do our best to keep track of them. And to get us started, I want to ask you guys one quick thing. Oh, no, wait. I need to do the legal disclaimer. My apologies. So everybody knows things are still changing. We are doing our best to focus on what we know so far. So obviously there could be some tweaks yet, but I think we've got a decent idea of where things are going. So we're doing our best to supply you with what we know so far. However, this is not legal advice. You must check with your broker, your legal rep, or your state local association for your local regulations, please. You need to know what's happening in your state and with your broker first and foremost. Not everything we say here will apply everywhere. We still don't know if everything's going to be national. Is it going to be state, which is most likely? So keep that in mind, please. So let's start with a really quick poll. In the chat, please tell us, what do you think is the most important change you see happening that you need to learn more about? You feel like you need to know most about how to negotiate a buyer agreement, compensation, how to communicate it, your value prop. What is it that you feel is the most important thing to you and what you want us to help you learn more about? And then maybe Sam, if you see some stuff coming in there, you can give us an idea of what everybody's talking about. And then feel free to jump in anytime, Sam, or we can jump right in with Ginger if you're good with that.
That'd be great. Yeah, let's
Okay,
start
cool.
with that, and I'll bring the questions.
All right, fantastic. So thanks for being with us, Ginger.
Sure.
Today, to get the ball rolling, we talked a little bit about what happened this week, and I'm wondering if you can just give us a very quick insight into what I kind of consider to be the elephant in the room at the moment, which is Zillow's touring agreement. So they just released this like a week ago or
That's a
now, I
hot topic.
suppose. It certainly is a hot topic. What do you think we should know about this, or what are your comments?
Well, when you look at the touring agreement, everybody was already saying, well, they're breaking the rules, they're doing this or that. But if you actually look at the lawsuit, it says you have to have an agreement. It does not say to tour a home. It does not say it has to be an agency agreement. So Zillow took the opportunity to make a touring agreement that does not have to have agency involved. Also does not have to have a fee, or it could have a fee. It's for 7 days, but here's what I want y'all to know. States are on it. My state, Texas, has already done a one page that is very similar, and it's for 7 days. There is agency in this one. You can charge a fee or you don't have to charge a fee. So people are already knowing that if Zillow is doing this, they are not going to be the only people with a touring agreement. So I think states associations are addressing that as we're speaking.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. I mean, obviously the Zillow agreement, because it has no compensation at all mentioned in it, is really designed for the consumer. Clearly, it also tells us, what value really Zillow brings to the equation. People need to understand that they need to work with a buyer's agent, because if you're not paying anything, you're going to get what Zillow offers you, which is a database, and that's about it. So I think that's really interesting. So I wanted to ask you, what do you think is sort of the immediate future of buyer rep agreements? So you just mentioned that, 1 day, 1 week. Where do you think this is going? Maybe give us some examples.
I think a lot of these agreements are 6, 7, 12 pages long. I think you're going to see more associations and brokerages move to a much shorter form, not to alarm people to sign it. And I think you're going to see 7-day, 3-day, 1-day agreements where that people feel comfortable getting to know you before they actually sign on with you. And it's my understanding, let's say you do a 7-day agreement, and that's kind of like, we're engaged, but we're not married yet. We're going to move to marriage once we get a feel for each other. My understanding is a lot of the states are going to make it where it is amendable. So I only gave you 7 days at the beginning, but we're going to amend this buyer's rep moving forward once we see we're a good fit for each other, which I think is not a horrible idea. And there will be agency on most of these.
Yeah, I that's what we're hearing as well too, Ginger. So, there's no question. I love the analogy. I think it's really important for everybody to get engaged before they get married in these relationships too. So doing a 1 day or a 7-day or whatever it is not a terrible idea. It's also a lot easier to sort of address things, I think, in a 1-pager and in a 1-week agreement. So that's a great way to get the ball rolling for sure. So I guess one of the next things that I always think of is, like, part of developing a buyer rep agreement is including, of course, how they will be compensated. So you and I have talked about some possible comp structures. I'm wondering if you could take a minute and just review briefly what those might look like and explain a little bit about each of them.
Okay.
To complement that question, we have a question from the audience. So Sandra is saying, I've been in the business for 20 years. This is the first class I'm taking on commission. So, and it's interesting because you can be in business for 20 years, but these changes are really, really new. So, yeah, go ahead, Ginger.
So I think moving forward, you guys the residential industry is probably going to move to where I have always been, which means we have a lot of different programs for compensation. One of them is a flat fee. Now, when we talk about a flat fee, there's no amending the agreement later because you sat down with them and said, this is my flat fee. Now, in your flat fee, it may have different basic levels, premium levels, platinum levels, and maybe one of your flat fee levels is I show you 5 homes and I write up to 5 contracts. And then you have a few other things, in the agency that you have to cover. And then your premium level goes way beyond that, including your basic level. And then, of course, when you get to your platinum, it's almost full on what you have always been doing for a percentage, but everybody in the transaction will know the fee and there will be no amending of that fee. Does everybody understand that? Like they can answer me, right, guys? So
they can answer Sam, though. Sam will tell.
So the next thing you might be thinking about is hourly fees. And you have to look at what is your hourly worth. You're going to have to come figure that out yourself. Now, everything I'm telling you is going to have to be broker specific. Some brokers are only going to do commission-based, a percentage. They're not going to allow you to do this. Other brokers are going to be very open to moving to different compensation structures. So on that hourly fee, you also can still have different levels of service. If I'm charging you $50 an hour, you get this, this, and this. If I charge you 75 an hour, you get a different suite of services. If I charge you 100 or 150, you get a totally different suite. And you would have to have that all spelled out. And that way, what I am understanding is most of you spend about 40 to 45 hours per transaction. You just have to go back now and figure out what is your hourly fee.
Yeah.
And that would be kind of open-ended. And then the next one is a retainer fee, which is kind of like that engagement. You're going to give me an engagement ring, which is the retainer fee. That retainer fee will allow you to actually change and amend the buyer's rep agreement. This is just like an upfront monies that will be set aside. You also can either apply that to the commission down the road with that amendment, or you don't have to apply that down the road. With a retainer, if they do not end up buying a home, you don't refund it. So it's kind of like a little down payment engagement ring to say, we want to work together and I'm a serious buyer and I'm willing to give you a retainer to show that. And then, of course, we can always go to negotiating the percentage commission into our contracts during you could do it in special provisions, or you could make an exhibit that says this contract is contingent upon you, the seller, actually meeting my contractual agreement in the buyer's rep to pay my buyer's agent. Now, from what I'm understanding in the state of Texas, and this will probably be in most states, that will have to be drafted by either the buyer or the buyer's attorney. It cannot be the agent. Now, you will have to check with each of your states, because in our state, you cannot practice law, and putting that statement in is practicing law. So we'll see if the brokers are going to come up with a standard statement from an attorney you can use, or if they will have to hire an attorney. And then don't forget, there's many ways you can do this. You can still do the touring agreement, but it should have some agency to it. And then you have to ask yourself, is there value with you just being a door opener? Because that is what you have turned yourself into if you are just a touring person. Now, keep in mind, I looked this up this morning. Zillow, who we call the third, second cousin at the family reunion, actually made $393 million on the first quarter using their agents, paying them 40% of a referral fee. So while a lot of people don't like Zillow, they are out there and they're not going anywhere. So all of us have to address how we're going to compete with all these different models. Was that too long?
No, Ginger.
That was perfect. We have two
amazing.
questions.
Okay.
The first one is the flat fee or hourly fee paid at closing, or is it paid up front? I think that's the first question.
Those fees would be, I'm sorry if I cut you off. Those fees would actually be paid at closing. The retainer fee would be paid up front, and it would be held in probably your broker's trust account. Because remember, no matter if you're doing a retainer, a flat fee, an hourly fee, you still have to do your split with your actual broker. So that's going to have to be in the broker's name.
So that's a golden question. You don't get to pocket that money. You have to put it in a trust until you actually deliver.
Now, it could depend on your state, but I don't think so.
Okay. Because that was the next question from Don. He's asking, is the upfront money held in escrow? And now I think we know the answer to that.
Most
so
likely.
Thank you.
I think it will be.
Yeah, most likely.
So another question that we're getting is, how do I articulate the buyer representation agreement upfront instead of at the offer time? Because usually agents would just go ahead and they would carry on the open houses and tourings until they get to the point that, hey, I need to write an offer now. Let's do the agreements and so on. But how do you bring that up front? And I think that's a tough question.
Yeah, that's actually, if I can interrupt you for 1 second, Sam, that's coming up shortly in one of the questions. But I wanted to ask her one thing that relates to the previous question. And it's important because it's something happened this week that's really relevant to this. So a lot of people will also be asking questions like, what if I'm working with either low-income home buyers or maybe VAs or people who have difficulty perhaps paying either a retainer or paying themselves as instead of the money being a seller credit at the end. So if they can't afford to pay the buyer agent, I guess the question is, what do you recommend, Ginger? And maybe you can talk a little bit to what happened yesterday in the VA rep changes.
Okay, good news. If y'all haven't seen this, VA is banning the restriction on the actual buyer paying the commission to the agent. So that's for right now. Y'all all need to go look at that article. But here's what I would say. The new rule states before you take a client out to tour any home, you have to tell the buyer whether that compensation will be on them or if it's going to be covered by the seller. So if I had a buyer that has very low income, does not have the fees for retainer, flat, or percentage, I would say to them, in your case, we're going to have to look at only homes that the seller is actually offering this compensation. You will know before we leave to look at anything, whether you are going to be on the line or you are not. And probably some of the people that just don't have those funds will have no option other than to look at homes that the seller is going to be offering compensation. And for you guys that are actually working with sellers, it's my understanding you're going to be able to put on the sign as a rider, buyer's agent commission available. That is going to make their homes more attractive to a lot of buyers. And of course, you're going to be able to go to their websites, text them, call them, whatever you need to do. So I think it's going to be a positive for sellers agents to actually get out and sell this. You need to offer compensation because there are going to be a host of buyers that just cannot afford one more fee. And if you have this on your sign compared to 2 other people down the street that don't, your home will probably get more showings. So the short answer is we will probably only be able to show them the homes that they will have that fee covered.
Yeah. There's something really important too that I wasn't aware of when this first happened that I think is a really important distinction, because they're basically what we're hearing is that the compensation component of the MLS needs to go away. But
right.
What was interestingly, I've seen a bunch of brokers recently who have been communicating publicly about the fact that that doesn't mean that the compensation can't be listed elsewhere. That's
correct.
I didn't realize that. So my understanding originally was that you have to call and figure it out every time. But that, for instance, on the broker website, the compensation could be listed there. It's just not going to be in the MLS system. So
it's probably,
yeah.
It's probably going to be on their websites. It's probably going to be on signage. There's also people that are going to put up billboards. You can use it in social media. So we have our social media expert here. She can tell us how we can do that. But the one thing it can't be on is MLS. The rest of it, from my understanding, as of today, is fair game.
Right. Good point. So to transition back to what Sam was asking, we'd really love to know what your thoughts are on how agents can be protected. Like, how do they ask their clients to sign an agreement? At what point should they ask them to sign an agreement? Sometimes they've never met. So what do they need to do to change their process, I guess, to make sure that this becomes a natural part of the flow when working with a buyer?
Well, their first meeting, whether that's Zoom or it's in person or if it's over the phone, they have to talk about how they are protected. The actual buyer is protected by signing this agreement. It spells out my duties to them, but it also spells out their duties to me. And it also tells them how this process works and where the commission line is, what fees you put in there. Working open-ended is just not going to work moving forward. But here's what I would say to all of you. They have to know your why before they know your how. And they have to like, trust, and believe you. So I think some of the agents' problems is they do a value proposition like it's a one that fits everybody. It does not. I would have a value prop for a first-time buyer. I'd have a value prop for a move up, a value prop for a luxury buyer, a value prop for an investor. I think moving forward, you guys are going to have to be more specific in your presentations. And you're also going to have to say, by law, I cannot show you these homes without some sort of an agreement. And I would like to meet you on Zoom, or I'd like to meet you in person and go over this personally with you. But the biggest point is so many agents spend so much time telling them how it's all about the law and regulation and it has to be signed. You need to spend more time on how this benefits the buyer, less time on how it benefits yourself.
Right. I think that's both those things that you said are really resonate with us. Like one point being that everybody needs a unique value prop for different types of customers or clients. Clearly that's critical. And it's actually one of the main exercises that we've built into the value prop course that we developed. It's really critical. So if you're not sure how to do that, certainly in the course we can help you, or jump into the free workshop that's coming up with Amy that can help you too. But I also
really
wanted
valuable, and I think that's a perfect build-up of social media and what to do on social media. And I think Karen can actually tell us a lot about like how to actually portray yourself as a buyer agent, how to tell and differentiate yourself between everyone else, so people can trust you and be able to actually sign that agreement with you, because that's the hardest thing now. Like it's a lot harder than now. You can't say, oh, it's free, just work with me. You have to actually, or get a free closing, or I'll pay for your closing, or this and that. Like different realtors do it different way in different states. But the whole thing is now you have to do it an entirely different way, and you need to build that trust. So I think Karen will tell us a lot about how to actually portray yourself on social media, how to change your marketing, and so on.
For sure, for sure. The other thing I'll mention is, it's going to be really critical that you have a buyer presentation wrapped up. Make sure that you have a physical buyer presentation, something that you're comfortable with, practice it. We actually have one that's in development by one of our partners. So if you guys are interested, when you sign up at that link that we gave you, we'll get you one as soon as it's available. And we'll also send it to Sam for his team to have a look at it too. But that's one of the things that we recommend as well. So I think the only other thing was, we were talking about developing a menu of services, and we don't really have time to jump into this, unfortunately, now, Ginger. We're going to move on to communication and marketing with Karen, but we wanted to just tell you that, if you're going to develop a menu of services, there's no reason why you couldn't have different compensation structures for each of those services, depending on what you're doing. So that's actually a whole nother conversation about adding new income streams, thinking about this as an opportunity to develop your list of services in a way that you actually expand your business, create multiple income streams, and diversify your business. So we'll do that on another day. But at this point, I wanted to just—
That's the perfect episode 3 of this.
I know, right? That's what I'm wondering too, Sam.
Yeah.
Actually, that's a wonderful segue, Sam, because I wanted to ask everybody, before we end today, if you've got a specific topic you really, really want us to cover, can you make sure that you put it in the chat too? And if that's one of them, great. We're happy to do that, but please be sure to let us know so we can make sure we're getting—
So we're getting a couple of yeses right now as we speak.
Oh, really?
And guys, while I have everyone's attention, I wanted to get feedback from everyone, including Ginger and Karen. We just talked about something, and that was, there is no problem of putting the commission on your social media material. So my question for you guys as realtors watching us and as experts on this panel, do you think there is value? Because we create a lot of listing videos as well for agents. So we plug into the MLS, we create a lot of listing content as well. Do you think there is value to add an ending slide to that says somehow, like, this listing compensates a buyer agent, call your buyer agent or buyer realtor to showcase this home or to see this home? If yes, please just raise your hand or tell us, because this is something that we can easily build into our product. But we wanted to test out and see, one, if there is ambiguity with legalities, because it says don't put it on the MLS, but can you put it on social media? That's the first question.
I met with the attorney here in Texas that does the association, and he said anything but MLS is fine. Anything but MLS. So that would mean social media. And I would think if you're doing the seller side, you should have on there. I wouldn't put the amount, but I would put it is available.
Compensation is, I think, to your point, Ginger, everybody needs to check locally and check with your broker. This is going to be the one spot that's going to be, you have to be really, really careful. You might only be able to say compensation in sort of general terms, like exactly what you said, which is we will compensate a buyer, something simple like that, or a buyer agent. But I would say stay away from percentages, stay away from saying commission. You know, we want to make sure that we're being as above board as we can. But I think that's really exciting news to know that you might be able to do that. I'm not sure.
That's interesting. What would be the right word though? I think that's the question that I have. Like, is it
Right.
this listing pays commission to your buyer agent, or is this contact your buyer agent for potential earnout? Like, I think that's the golden thing, because if you can figure out what to say that doesn't say percentages, yet invites the audience to call their agent, I think that's probably the biggest game changer.
Yeah.
Maybe you put compensating, this seller is compensating the buyer's agent. Something as simple as that. That's all we need to know.
Yeah, I think that would be something super cool. All right, so I think
Sounds
now
good.
we want to learn everything about marketing and social media from Karen. I've known Karen for a while now. I've been always following her amazing work, and we're super excited to have her here today with us. She's been educating realtors for a long time, basically educating them how to portray themselves on social media, how to win on social media, and how to really stand out and do more. So we would love to hear from you, Karen, and that's really exciting to have you here today.
Thank you, Sam. Appreciate that. Grateful, always grateful for the opportunity. So
Thanks for being here, Karen. You know, we love you too. We're going to talk a little bit first about communicating their value prop. That's one of the things that we really wanted to mention. So since we know it's never about the price and it's about the value, what do you think are some of the best ways agents can communicate their value prop?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I always kind of, at a sort of a very high level generic approach before, when I work with a lot of my clients, I'm really helping make sure that they understand the importance of having a social media strategy, right? And the big component of that is understanding who your ideal customer is that you're wanting to attract as a result of using social media. And that really ties in nicely to, you know, what Ginger was saying earlier around, you know, understand who your audience is, if it's the luxury or if it's the first time home buyers or if it's the seniors, because you really want to, you know, understand that your messaging is speaking specifically to them and their needs and their understanding. And that translates really well into you then being able to communicate your value proposition. And so, you know, at a high level, there's things that you want to make sure that you are consistently communicating through the social media platforms around your expertise and your experience, right? Your knowledge of the geographical area that you really want to dominate, your years of experience, and especially because of the uncertainty that's happening right now in the industry, which, you know, I think it's safe to say that the majority of this uncertainty is really kind of impacting this industry sort of internally and but is going to start to translate and ripple out into the buyer community. And so continuing to present yourself as an agent that has the knowledge, has the expertise, has the experience, and you can do that, you know, just simply through case studies or client testimonials and really emphasizing your unique services and what you offer. Do you have, you know, specific types of strategies through your marketing or technological tools that you use? And also, especially now going forward, knowing that you are going to just be as focused on the buyer's needs, be very transparent, communicate your entire process, be very, very open about that as well. And if there's ongoing education that you want to offer to them now because of all the uncertainty, make sure that you've got a lot of content marketing out there that is providing that level of information and education. And then so much of it comes down to your ability to develop a relationship. And I know all of this stuff is probably not anything new to what I'm saying, but my point is that don't get so consumed with you feeling as if you are having to defend what's happening in the industry right now. Just communicate the fact that your number one priority is knowing that you are going to be there for them and support their needs and their interests. And really saying, with all of these things that are happening and all of these changes, at the end of the day, I'm your agent. I'm representing you. And so while there's all of these adjustments that are happening, because of my knowledge, because of my expertise, because of my experience, because I have been, helping buyers for X amount of time or years, this is going to be something that I can help you address and then communicate, like Ginger was saying. We may have to limit the number of houses that we can look at based on what your ability is and your budget, but just communicating to them that they can, rest easy, knowing that because of who you are and your experience and your expertise, the industry is always going to change, right? We can look at it like something that is manageable. We can handle it. I'm the expert. That's why you are working with me. That's why you've hired me. I am going to basically represent you because I understand you. I understand your needs. I understand your interests. And when you are communicating to your community through social media, not that, hey, there's lots of changes and there's a lot of movement and I'm not quite sure, but I'll, try and figure it out. That's kind of energy that's being communicated. And that's going to possibly cause people to think that they might not be ready yet, right, to represent me as a buyer. But if you're like, hey, I've got this, I have my finger on the pulse of what's going on, don't worry about it. We have options. I can communicate all the options to you. And that's your value prop, right? It's never like Sabine was saying, it's never about the price. If they're confident in knowing that regardless of what is happening in this transition, you understand it and you'll be able to effectively communicate it to them. And at the end of the day, you're meeting their needs because you understand their needs. That's first and foremost. And if you've ever heard me talk about social media and the strategy, my number one point is you have to get clear on who it is that you are wanting to attract so you can fully understand what the needs are of that particular demographic.
Yeah.
So when you show up with them, you understand how to communicate what it is that they need, and that's the value prop.
Yeah, you've always said that, and I think that's one of the most important exercises any agent can do before any of this really can be properly communicated. You need to know who you're talking to,
Yeah.
And I think that that's such a critical one. I'm curious if you've seen, any specific examples of somebody that's sort of hitting it out of the park right now.
Yeah, I mean, the best examples are that I've seen and been able to kind of guide my clients is a lot around what I've just said, is the communication that they're putting out there is more of, hey, I just want you to know. And this could be a very simple reel that you put together that is just communicating, like, I just want you to know I am very aware of what is happening right now in the industry, and I am making it my priority to understand exactly what's happening so that when you and I start to work together, so there's no question there, right? You're not saying when we do or if we do, right? Or if you do, you're saying when we start to work together, you won't have to worry about any of this. I will be able to effectively communicate to you everything that's going on. And then if you have an opportunity to pull in a case study, right? Because case studies are always really effective about a client that you worked with and one that was concerned and you were able to address those concerns. And those case studies will probably be a lot more common and relevant when the dust settles, right? And we kind of really know what's happening. But yeah, the best way right now, the case studies that I'm seeing are the agents that are just showing up in a way that they're like, still confident. I still got it. This is just a blip on the radar.
Would you define a case study? It could be as simple as a little anecdote or a story about somebody that they've helped. Would that be enough?
Absolutely. Yeah, Absolutely. And again, it doesn't even really have to directly tie back to what is happening, right, today. It really could just be, I worked with this buyer and they were very concerned with what was happening in the industry, but it may have not directly impacted them yet. But, I was able to just share with them all the information that I have. And as a result, because I also really knew their needs, right? I understood what their budget was, the areas that they were looking for, the type of home they were looking for, what their limitations are, their concerns, all of that. And so again, that just kind of lends itself back to, why is someone even having the conversation with you? Why is a buyer even talking to you in the first place?
Right.
Because they have a need to buy some real estate. They're looking for a home, and this is a huge transaction for them, and understanding, why are you moving? What is the area? What are you looking for? And so just really continuing to communicate that your number one priority is them, and knowing them and knowing what their needs are. And that's what you're going to address and make sure that happens.
Yeah.
I think something to your point
sorry,
is that,
Sam.
like, Brad Inman recently did a piece on LinkedIn for Brad Inman of Inman News. Something that was interesting is this, like, before, everyone was looking at the top to see what would happen, and the change was supposed to come from the top, from the NAR level, from the association levels. And well, that didn't happen, and then the lawsuit happened, so they couldn't really do anything, and they couldn't really say anything. Now the education is coming from the bottom up. So now we're seeing agents taking an initiative to educate what's happening in the industry, to really talk to their one-on-one buyers and the public. And I think this change that we're seeing is really interesting. In the past couple of months, we're seeing every agent advocating for educating the public. And while the media is saying one thing, which is like a totally different negative headline, we are seeing a fully positive outreach approach that agents have taken, and they're starting to really educate what's happening in the industry, educate what they're doing. And I think, to your point, now we're going to see more of that, and it's a positive change that we're seeing from the bottom up rather than the top down.
Well, I think it's like any situation, right? Change can be very scary, but it's how you perceive it and how you deal with it.
For sure. Well, Karen and I always laugh that, rule number one is don't be the angry agent. You want to be positive and being the light that everybody follows, for sure. But that's what's so exciting about this, right, Karen? We've talked about how this is their opportunity to really be the go-to agent and use all this turmoil, frankly, to become that if they're not already, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's really exciting. The fact that there is so much misinformation, I'm curious what you think about this. So the fact that there is so much misinformation, Sam alluded to it as well. How do you think an agent should address that in their social? Like, do you think it should be as direct as, this is what they're saying, this is what's really going on, or is it bigger picture? What do you think?
Well, I think it kind of goes back to Ginger's point of the fact that, it seems as if it's state by state and could even be like brokerage by brokerage, right? So I emphasize the importance of making sure that you've checked first with the regulatory bodies and make sure that you know what you can and can't say.
Yeah.
And it's so much, so many pieces of it are still a bit of a moving target, right? So you kind of don't want to be the one that ends up providing misinformation as well. So, but at the high level, I don't think there's anything wrong with you, again, communicating the fact that you're very aware of all these changes. That there's a lot of things that are happening, could impact buyers, but you understand what that is. You're making it your priority. It's when I hire professionals for anything, I want to know that they understand me and they understand what my needs are. And that's kind of why I'm hiring them, right? I don't want to know exactly what it is that you're doing. And I didn't go to school to get your education. That's why I'm hiring you as a professional. It's really no different for the real estate community, because I don't have a realtor's license. I want to hire an agent to help me find my home.
Yeah, for sure. And maybe I can ask this of both you and Sam, you know, in terms of sort of where they get some of this content from. You know, you mentioned case studies or stories, Karen, which I think is, you know, even new agents can say, you know, one of the brokers in my office did this or something. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't even have to maybe even be their own story. But I'm curious what you guys think about sort of what they should be putting out there, where the content might come from if they're feeling a little unsure about that. Sam, do you want to talk to that? That's a big part of your role for sure.
I think, so there's multiple things. Like, there are some things that we know for sure, as far as, well, if I need to represent you as a buyer, now we need to have a chat, and now we need to educate you as to how this process goes. I think regardless of what the law will be, you need to have that discussion, and you need to post that on your social media. So we're actually creating content around that right now as we speak, where you're focusing on, let's make sure that you understand what a buyer agent is. It's no longer free, why you need a buyer agent, and all that jazz. So those parts you still need to educate, and I think that's super important to be there. And in fact, you can take, there's a ton of material right now. You can take them, you can either use our videos, or you can just say it yourself in front of the camera. All those things are available and done. The only thing is, I think the specifics to your might be different, right? To Ginger's point, it could be different to your brokerage, it could be different for your state. So those things, I think, and honestly, I don't need to see that on social media. I think it's just too detailed. Like, I don't need to know what your hourly rate is. Like, which, like, have you ever seen a lawyer putting their hourly rate on their website or on their social media? No, like, it doesn't make sense.
Right. Sure.
But I think that's my 2 cents on that. I think Karen can say more.
No, I agree. And usually when, if I am asked by my clients, you know, what's the best resource, I really kind of deflect back to, you really need to be looking and talking to your brokerage about that, because that's, you know, again, it's very sensitive information, and you just want to make sure that if you are putting it out there, that it is the right information. And, you know, to Sam's point, and, you know, wait until you're having that one-on-one conversation with them, where you're on the couch and you're at that point where Ginger was saying to get engaged, you know, then you have that serious conversation. But, you know, really, you're just kind of on the dating sites right now, right? You're just trying to attract them, and there's no, you don't have to tell all your secrets, right?
That's a really good point. I think that's something that a lot of us, all of us, I think, don't understand about the real true reason, or I guess goal of social media, which is not to be at the, you know, the nuances and the details are not what we want to be delivering on our social, on any platform, I'm assuming, on any of our social platforms. I know some of them vary, LinkedIn versus, say, Instagram, but maybe talk to that a little bit if you don't mind.
Well, it's like, you know, you've heard me say this before, is when it comes to marketing, you really just want to focus on the start and the end. And the start is, I'm going to get your attention because I'm going to be able to communicate that I understand who you are and what your pain and your problem is. Any marketing campaign that you see written, especially, like, just think about the ones that are about, like, the pharmaceutical new medications, right? It always starts out showing you the person's pain and the problem, what they are dealing with. And then it says, we've got this solution. And then it shows them being happy, right? Running through the fields with their grandchildren. And that's the same thing. I always say, you're never going to see a commercial showing you the plane ride to Hawaii, right? It's always going to show you with toes in the sand with a little umbrella in the drink. So don't get too detailed on the plane ride. Just focus on the fact that you understand who they are, you understand their needs, to the extent that you have created this entire, you know, plane ride, but they don't need to know what the details are. And we tend to get a little too much into the details of the plane ride. And again, save that for when you are, you know, in the living room and you're ready to kind of take it to the next level. This is you just being able to really kind of promote yourself and understand who they are, what their needs are, and get them to see what their life is going to be like as a result of working with you.
That's a wonderful way to put it. I love that analogy. The Hawaii analogy is my favorite. I
Right.
think it makes it so crystal clear. I do
Yes.
that even when I'm thinking about our social strategy. I always think about, am I doing the Hawaii or am I doing the plane trip? You know,
Exactly.
so I
Exactly.
struggle the same. So I'm sure
Yes.
lots of you do too. But
I
so
think to your
we're
point, I think we just to add on top of that, like we need to look at marketing as a funnel, right? So
Exactly. Right.
social media is like really top of funnel. You're not
Top,
really
top.
going into
Yep.
detail, right?
Yeah.
So your goal on social media is just to put a hook so people can dive in and learn more. Once they've done that, then you do the rest. And then the goal is, I think, to get to that couch or kitchen counter, as we call it
Right.
in the industry, right? Like
Right.
going above a DM to an actual in-person appointment. Once
Yep.
you're there, everything is different, right?
Yep.
And I think that's the thing that we keep missing. So I think just to
Yeah.
recap on that, you don't need to basically go over all the details. You just need to put enough pointers in so people can contact you and ask you more questions, and then kind of go from there. I think that's the biggest thing in there. So I have another question for you, Karen. Like initially, and I think you are seeing a lot of different campaigns on how to portray yourself as a buyer agent and how to showcase the value prop. And there are talks in the industry where we are not going to see the sake moms of the industry, those that are just doing one deal a year, leaving the industry. So those will stay. But the agents that are doing 5 to 10 deals a year, those are probably going away because there's not just going to be enough volume for them. So if you're that agent that's doing 5 to 10 deals a year, and let's say half of them are coming from buyer deals, from friends and family, and so on, how would you really advertise yourself and your services as a buyer agent now? Because like you're being threatened, and you might be that agent that might actually leave the industry with that 5 deals going away, because now there's not enough income and you have to basically go and get a full-time job to supplement that income. And I know it's a tough question, but I wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Well, no, I mean, it's a good question. And I don't think it's really, the answer isn't really all that different from what I give as a traditional answer to agents that I speak to that are interested in understanding how they can utilize social media to increase their overall business and lead generation and have that competitive advantage, right? Because a lot of what you're talking about now is kind of the competitive landscape is changing for them. And one of the things that I always say to my clients is you don't want to discount the power that your online brand and presence has and gives you that competitive advantage. And so I always say, go onto an incognito window and Google yourself and make sure you see how you're showing up, because that's how they're seeing you. And there's a lot of little things that you can be doing to really kind of like up level your game when it comes to social media, around making sure that you have a very consistent brand, a consistent messaging, a very cohesive, professional looking online presence as well, and making sure that you've communicated all of those value propositions in there as well. And don't look at your social media as, well, I'm just going to post every once in a while about, that I'm at an open house on my personal Facebook page, or I'm going to do a picture on my personal Instagram page. It's really taking it to the next level and recognizing yourself as a business. You are a professional and you want to show up in a way that gives that same impression to your potential next buyer, right? And also giving others the opportunity to refer business to you. It makes it difficult if all you are doing is just kind of randomly posting every once in a while on your personal pages. I can't refer anybody to a personal page. I can't write a review to anybody on a personal page. That's why it's really important to make sure that you are using these platforms in a way that'll really help establish you as a professional, and help you start to show up in front of the right community that's really looking for what it is that you have to offer.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful advice. I just want to let everybody know Ginger had to run 5 minutes early, so she says goodbye. But if you have questions for her, throw it in the chat and we'll do our best to address them later. I think since we only have a couple minutes left, I don't know, Sam, are there any other questions you would like us to address?
I think most of the questions that I'm seeing are like one of them that's really interesting is this. Please answer this question as a real life scenario. The buyer asks, now I have to pay 2.5% for you to represent me on a transaction. How do you really answer that question? I think that's one of the key questions that we keep getting, and it would be great to hear your thoughts on that.
I mean, I think honestly, that's a Ginger question, to be
Yeah,
honest.
I was gonna say.
So,
Yeah.
I think
Okay.
that, I
And
mean, I know
then-
how other people have answered that, but I think it should come from Ginger, Sam.
Yes. Okay. Sounds good. How to really portray yourself as a buyer expert in 5 videos, like 5 topics. I think that's a good ending for this call as well. Like, if you wanted to pick like 3 to 5 topics,
Yeah.
that would say what it is that you do as a buyer agent
Mhm.
and why they should work with you as a buyer agent, what would
Yeah.
those be?
Well, I think in addition to several of the ones that I mentioned, right, in terms of communicating your years of experience, the amount of homes that you've helped buyers, that you understand, you know, if you can really specialize in a particular geographical pocket and really communicate that you are an expert in that area. But I think another really good one also is because of the fact that there is sort of, you know, this unsettling of what the changes are, is again, just communicating that I completely understand that there are a lot of changes that are happening right now. I am making it my priority to be on top of it and stay educated. And so that I can continue to pass that information along to you. And at the end of the day, it's about you, it's about your needs. And that's what I'm going to understand first, so that I can then provide you with the most appropriate and effective solution and help you find the next home, because I'm the expert, right?
That's perfect.
And that's what they're
perfect. So
wanting to
just-
know.
And I think some nuggets golden nuggets that you mentioned was, I'm an expert in this geographical area. So I'm an expert in Oregon,
Right.
and I know what's happening in Oregon. So that's a really important thing to say.
Yeah.
I know every neighborhood. I know what
Right.
the vibe looks like. I know how
Right.
this community feels like. I think
Exactly.
that's really important. And the other one was, I've had this experience of helping buyers. Like, I've helped 10 buyers before you. And I
Right.
think going through that story is really important. I think it's just a lot more than putting just sold on social media or just bought, because
Absolutely.
frankly,
Oh, yeah.
I look at that, I'm like,
Absolutely. And don't
so
even
you
get me
made
started
money,
on that
good
one.
for
Yeah.
you. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, good. So you made
Exactly,
money.
right.
What
And
does
the other
that
thing
have to
too
do
is
with
if
me?
you, right, and if you have the opportunity to say, I've been helping, you know, buyers over X amount of years, well, those X amount of years have had ups and downs and shifts and changes, and you've been consistent, right? And you've been successful at providing the service and the needs of the buyers time and time again. So that proves that this is just one more adjustment in the industry, in the market, whatever you want to call it, but I'm the expert. So it's really just continuing to communicate that this is not going to cause you to adjust how you're going to show up and what you're going to provide.
I think that's an excellent point. And just to complete that, guys, if you're selling a home, and you represented the buyer, you need to tell me the story of how this transaction happened. What was the difficulty? Like, they first looked at this home, then they looked at another thing. It took 6 months. All those things, you need to tell the story. If you're not really telling the story, then what's in it for me? Like, why do I want to read this? So that story, I think, is the connection point. So that person will be like, wow, Sam worked with this other buyer for 6 months, and he didn't give up. So he's probably worth that commission. Let me talk to him. And I think that's the biggest point in there. All right, guys, we are reaching the end of this call. 2 important things to do. The first one, if you have not looked at HIVEOLOGie and roomvu partnership, please go to this link that's in the YouTube link. There's going to be a ton of free materials that we put together. Our mission is to educate agents through this change. And yes, there are some services that both companies offer, but there's a ton of free materials that you can get started with as well. So if you're a new agent, if you need help, please go to these links. Please get help. And We are here to educate you. We are here to add value to your existing practices. And once you're ready, once you know which service is right for you, you can basically opt in and get it. Sabine has been an amazing help to bring in a great line of educators in the industry, including Karen and Ginger today. And we are really pushing for helping you guys navigate this change. There's just a lot of unknowns, I think. Everyone knows that. But at least we're doing something about it. We're learning, we're adapting. And I think that's the biggest thing. And I'm really thankful for everyone that joined us today. Over 200 people joined us today live on YouTube. And that's really amazing. Over 400 attendees. And yeah, thank you, Sabine. If you want to finish up the closing remarks.
I think you got most of it, Sam. You did a great job. Thank you. Thank you. No, we really love this partnership and we're excited to bring you guys as much of this stuff as we can. I heard probably 3 or 4 like critical takeaways over and above the ones you already got, Sam, like from the whole thing we've talked about today. So, you know, to Karen's point, from a social perspective, top of funnel, as you mentioned, is critical. Think about their pain and the outcome, not the plane ride. You know, focus on your value prop, make sure you've got that nailed. Figure out your buyer presentation. You know, you're going to need one. You're going to also want to talk about your buyer agreement and your buyer rep agreement and figure out where you're going to get that from. Go talk to your broker. And I think, of course, the last part is decide what kind of an agent you're going to be. You know, how are you going to get paid? That depends an awful lot on the value that you're going to bring to the table. So there's a few things to do to follow up, but we're going to next month. Sam, maybe you can tell us at some point, not now if you don't have it, but at some point you can tell us what some of the top topics were that people put in the chat that they want to learn about too. But we'll have a new topic for you guys.
I think going into the details of the content itself, like what kind of content to post, like they're really asking about that. Like how do you actually go one layer deeper and think about the actual content that I'm going to post on social media? The typical questions that are coming up, like, so what is the difference between a retainer and let's say a flat fee that I can pay you? Or what is the difference between no representation at all and a representation? I think these types of content is still a question. We are also scratching our heads and looking for content right now to create for more realtors, more content that realtors can use as a buyer agent. And we are focused on that. But the biggest question, I think, is the content itself and the contract itself, like the details of how to talk to that client, real life examples of how to talk to the client to get like really to the finish line, right? I think that's the hardest part.
Yeah, there's an awful lot of that in the course that we have, Sam, too. So when they sign up for that at that RoomVu link, we'll send them access. But yeah, it's not that it takes time. We're going to have to go deeper into each of those individually for sure. Yeah, but maybe what we can do is we'll work out the next couple session topics around some of that for sure.
Sounds good. Thank you so much, guys. Thanks for joining. You do have a free account on RoomVu. Go activate it in case you're not an active member on RoomVu. Go get free content. There's a ton of content that we just covered today. And then you also do have a free account with HIVEOLOGIE. So many things that you can get from them in terms of free resources. So be sure to maximize that, and we are here to help you. Thank you.